Well, welcome everybody. This is Eric Lofholm, and I want to welcome you to a very special Zoom. And Amy recently published a new version of the Ultimate Coach. It's called the Ultimate Coach Concentrated. And she was also the author of the Ultimate Coach and the original book. And then this new one as well is a book that is creating miracles with people all over the world. And it's a really special thing to be a part of. And so we're going to be talking about the new book. Amy's going to be sharing with us why the book was created and how it's similar and how it's different to the original book. And so Amy, welcome to today's Zoom.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and I'm so glad that we're able to gather here as a community. And so maybe you can talk about maybe the first book a little bit. We can start with that and how this book came about, and then we can dive into the new concentrated version. So give us the background of the original book.
So the original book came about because Steve had worked with Alan Thompson 15 years ago, just a one-time session. And Alan changed his life. He kept coming back to Steve over time and saying, we need to write a book about you. And Steve would say no. And he'd come back 3 years later and say, oh, we need to do this book about you. And he'd say no. And then he came back finally and said, God nudged me last night that we need to do this book about you. And so we stopped and talked about it and thought, do we want to take this on? And we went back and forth and finally said, okay, we will try this. And Alan interviewed Steve. He'd call him every week and they'd talk for 2-3 hours every night. And Steve boxed up, it felt like a ton of personal data, mementos, journals, all kinds of things. He sent them all the way to Australia. And Alan went through all of those. He contacted over 100 of Steve's friends and clients and family members, and he interviewed everyone. And he wrote up his first draft. And Alan, all of the time that he was doing this, he said, and if you don't like what I come up with, you can put it on a shelf. You don't have to do anything with it. I know your wife's a writer. You can give it to her and she can do whatever she wants, or you can, have it published. It's totally yours. This is my gift to you. And when you said, we'll give it to your wife, I'm thinking, I don't want that. I knew what that was. And Alan is brilliant. I mean, literally brilliant, as a genius, and he is incredibly gifted. But when I read his manuscript of it, I just thought, oh, this story has to be told by someone who knows the story from the inside. This has to be told by someone who knows the pain and the frustration and the fears and who knows the story. And as wonderfully as Alan did, I didn't feel like he got Steve's mom right. And I didn't feel like I could, in good conscience, send that out in the world. I needed to be true to the love I had for her and the amazing woman that she was, and try to portray her in a way that would really honor this incredible woman. So there were things like that. And as I was looking at it, it wasn't like, oh boy, I have this wonderful project to take on. It's like, oh crap, I think I'm the one that has to write this story. And I knew it would be huge. And at that point, I actually was just going to take on doing the life history portion. And so at first I set aside, I thought, okay, here's 2 months. And I wrote like 15 hours a day. And then I got to the end of the life story. And then I'm realizing there's a different tone here and there's a different feel. And the second part, Alan really just had a compilation of experiences. It didn't really fit around themes or in chapters. And so I felt at that point, I needed to keep going. And in fact, I went to lunch with my 2 sons, and that was what Clint suggested. He says, this needs more of a framework for the second half. And I almost started crying right there at the restaurant because this was like October and I knew what it meant. And it took till July till that rough draft was finished. And at that point, I cut back to working 8 to 10 hours a day because I couldn't keep the other pace going. But I did that 6 days a week. And so it was a huge project. We had Chris that came in and worked as our editor, and he was amazing. And he got it already and did all the formatting and was such a valuable touchstone to say this works or this doesn't work. And for the first one, we also had Steve shared it with a lot of people and said, give us your feedback. What would you do? And I struggled with that because I'm like, it's not finished yet. It's not as perfect as I can make it. Not that it was going to be perfect, but I didn't feel like it was a totally finished product. But Steve's like, no, we need to do this. And we got such good feedback. So I felt like I got multi levels of, of editing and of people that were truly skilled at in writing. And so that was a whole long process. Then fast forward it to last year, about this time, it was in April, and we were headed to our grandson's basketball game. And Steve said, well, let me tell you about a conversation I've had. And there was a young gentleman, 13-year-old boy in India, who contacted Steve and told him that he was really interested in our book, but he was having a hard time understanding it because he didn't even speak English very well. And he asked for some help. He at first asked, what's being? And then it came across that he doesn't even really read or speak English. So this is a complicated thing to take on. But Steve, being Steve, thinks who's the most powerful person that could help me do this. And so he called or texted Ranjan and asked Ranjan to call him. And so they called and he explained what was going on. And he said, Ranjan, my request is that we help this young man. And Ranjan said, I will do that. I will take that on. The next day, Ranjan texted back and said, he wants me to take him through the book word by word and explain everything to him. Just when Steve said that, I thought, that's overwhelming. That's hours and hours. Who could do that? And then Ranjan said, I will take that on. I know there will be miracles. I was totally floored. And so we were talking about this, and Steve then said, well, maybe we really should get someone to write this up in more of a teenage version. And at that point, I'm like, no, not someone. I need to write that in a teenage version because that is my book. I'm not going to hand off my baby to someone else to raise. I've already given birth to this thing, and I'm the one who would know where to cut and what to do. And so this time I didn't go into it dragging and dragging my heels and screaming, saying, I don't want to do this. I went into it going, no, I want to do this because I can see what can happen with it. And so once again, I kind of put my life on hold and started writing 8 hours a day. And it really only took 2 to 3 months. Then I sent it to Chris Nelson, and being the very highly sought after editor that it is, it took a few months till it could work his way in his queue up to where he could take it on. And then we really worked together from January till May to get it out. And you would think, oh, you already have the book. How hard can it be? I was surprised at how demanding, not only just cutting and recreating it was, but just even how demanding getting all the formatting and everything that it takes. There are so many details that go from manuscript to finished product, and Chris Nelson is just amazing at doing it, and he's meticulous and knowledgeable, and he's really good. So I can't give him enough shout outs for what he has done. So that's kind of the process. My intention with it was probably the first thought was to reach out to teenagers and more young adults. But I am also really aware that there's a lot of adults that don't read and are daunted by reading. And I think, if you hold up the two books, they kind of look the same, but if you go like this, you can see how different they are. And the Ultimate Coach Concentrated is just about half of the length. And it's more, I think it's more kid friendly, it's more teenager friendly, but I also think for some people it's more adult friendly. And there's things that are definitely the same about it. It's absolutely essential that you start by reading the back cover and the first 2 pages. It's still about the reader. It's still divided into the same main chapters. In fact, most of the main chapters are the same chapters. They're just a lot shorter. But one of the big differences is for me is at the beginning, especially, I felt like a little more like I wanted to create a life, a story for the reader to step into, to feel that they were living it. And at the very end of the book, I had been listening to a book while I was writing this, and I came across this quote. I didn't even love the book, but the quote was excellent. And it's Beatrice Williams, and she says in it, if you ask me, a biography should read like a novel, not an encyclopedia entry. We ought to be able to see the world through our subject's eyes, to live life as our subject lived it, to feel the tick-tock of his pulse in our own veins. That's truth. And for me, what I wanted to do, because I think adults have a little bit more of an attention span to read through great quotes and through logical arguments that would lead you in your thought along a process. But especially for teenagers, for young adults, I wanted them to step into Steve's life. I wanted them to feel it. I wanted them to experience it. And in the course of that, especially in some of the early chapters, that meant creating dialogue. It meant creating conversations that just invite you into the life, that just make it live for you. And I have to say, obviously, I was not there in 1953 when some of these things happened. I wasn't born yet, and I wasn't in the family. But I have been in the Hardison family for 46 years, and I have spent hours and hours and hours with Steve's family where we have sat around his brother and sister-in-law's dining table around their back porch, and the whole family's gathered, and we have talked about these family stories. And I think one of the really fun things of being together as a family is the rehearsal of stories that you all know and you can all quote, but it's just sweet to talk about those formative years. And I have been a part of all of those. And I've heard one-on-one, I've heard Rob and Teresa and Jamie share their perspectives of what it was like for them growing up. And then Steve, who is extremely nostalgic, has shared with me over and over his experience of what it was like. But also, Steve's mom lived in Arizona, and we were her only kids living in Arizona. And we spent a lot of time with her, and I felt very close to her, and she felt very close to me. And she would share some of these stories firsthand of their early life, like when they went to dinner and her husband says to her, by the way, I'm leaving you for this other woman. And then when the other woman says, I've changed my mind, and he turns to her and says, I guess I'll stay with you then. You know, it's like I heard that from her mouth. So I used some of my imagination to create a setting that gave that life, but the story came from her mom or from Steve's mom. So I feel like in the book, there's a little bit more of that, so that as you step in, I believe you're stepping into Steve's life, and the joy and the pain and the trauma and all that's there, I feel is even just a little bit more tangible with all of that. And for this book, then I also, for Concentrated, I deleted some things that maybe wouldn't be on the top tier for teenagers. Like, I didn't think they necessarily wanted to hear about how Steve was as a dad from my kids' point of view, because that's still maybe something in their future. I didn't think that, as much as I loved Byron Katie and Iyanla and Steve Chandler and the people that were formative in how we think, I didn't think they would have as much to relate with on that. So some of those chapters aren't there. And then I think to show you a big example of it is in the original book, we start with an enigma, and it talks about Steve meeting Steve Chandler, maybe not the first time, but early on at their time at Time Max, and how Steve's really depressed and how Steve works with them. And then we finish that experience where Steve says one of my favorite quotes of all time, and that is saying that Steve Hardison is a mere coach is like calling the Beatles a garage band. And Steve Chandler just has such great expression. And I love that. But I didn't even put that in. In this original chapter, it kind of also foreshadows some of the things that will be going on in the book. But in the concentrated, I pick up the original one's like 5 pages, so not really long, but 5 pages. And in the concentrated book, this chapter Enigma is just barely a half a page. And it picks up with an experience with Steve in high school, where he sees his girl, walking down the hall with another guy, and just that rage erupts, and he takes him on, and the guy's bigger than Steve is, and pins him on the wall, gives him an uppercut. His teeth go through his tongue and blood is splurting all over. And Steve, like only Steve would, says, "Have you had enough?" It's like that's the chapter Enigma for this. Not only can I think that teenagers and young adults who are closer to that era can relate with it, it's quick, it has oomph, um, it grabs because it creates, this person is unique. Who says this? Who thinks that? Who does this? I am interested. Please keep reading, is what it kind of says. One chapter I didn't change at all is the millennials. I let it stand solely as it is for obvious reasons. We are especially targeting that audience. I added some more information on Bean, and that's a direct result of the Bean movement taking on more and more impetus on his own. And so I put in more clarifying information about the Bean, and there are not vignettes. And that's, again, just kind of a choice. Actually, Chris Doris is there and Wayne Hoffman, but because they're only 2, they're not called vignettes. And in the original book, in my mind, I kind of followed like this rule of 3 that you sometimes run into in literature, to use 3 examples to really substantiate your point. And that has a purpose. And in this book, I would let one, I would choose the one that I felt had the most power and let it speak for itself. So it's more succinct. And by being more succinct, what's there speaks louder because it's the only thing there. So it gives it a stronger voice. I
want to
think
jump in and I want to share a couple of thoughts, and I want to create a miracle on this call for all of you that are here live, and those of you that are watching the recording. And I know that this recording is going to be shared with many people all over the world for years to come. And I want to talk about for a moment about, I want to create the book. Behind you is a bookshelf full of books, and behind me is my green screen, but it's also a bunch of books behind me. And I want to thank you for creating the book. I met Steve back in 2010, and the way he was introduced to me from Gary Henson was that Steve has the best content in the world. And so, of course, I wanted to meet him. And at that point, the only content that I could find was the TBOLI NFL video. And, Steve's never been interested in creating courses and books and these kinds of things, as you know. And I was starving for that content. And so, when the book came out, I was so excited to now have access to Steve through the book. And the book has created miracles for people all over the world. And I want to share with all of you, I'm sure if you're watching this right now, you probably have a library of books or a bunch of books on your Audible, on your phone or whatnot. And this book, we've got the 2 different versions of it. We're talking about the concentrated today, the 2 different versions. But this is a book, Amy, that I will read or listen to the audio version literally for the rest of my life. I will continue to study. And it's like, Eric, why would you study the same book over and over and over again? And it's because what the book's doing for me and so many people in the world is it's helping people take a look at who they're being and give them access to shifting their being. And could you speak a little bit to anything that you'd like to share about the content of the book of around being, and what's your experience about being, and why does it matter for us to learn about being?
Um, I feel like as I started the book, I was not writing a book of being. I was looking inside and saying, what is the story that I need to tell for people to get who Steve is? And that, um, like I said, I got a manuscript from Alan, but it's not a lot the same of what the book is. So that's why I'm saying I had to look in and say, so I kind of have this framework, but what's my story to tell so people get Steve? And that includes part of his life story. And that does a little bit what I talked about of what my intention is for the concentrated is to really step into his life. As you step into life, you're stepping into being. You're not stepping into theory. You're talking about being as it shows up day by day in the reality of life, in the pain and the hardships, the failures, the joys. That's being, and that's where being matters. Being is not a construct as a way to power. Being as a way to power is how it impacts everyday life. So it's not coincidental that we start with here's this story of who this person is, because this shows being, and it shows the evolution of being, and it shows the things that create being, including the trauma and the hard things that um, are all part of the process of creating who we are, which also gives us the choice of creating. Because face it, is not so much of our being that we're creating a compensation of what we're not, of the pain that already existed. That one exists. So that is our backdrop of life. And from that space, from the detritus, if you will, of life, then when we have the tools and the power, then we can step in and say, no, this is the life I'm going to create. And if we say, how am I going to create my life? I am going to create my life by creating my thoughts, by creating a document, by living with passion, by, all the things that Steve does. And of all of the things that are there in the book, and especially when I look at concentrated, that you are going to hand as tools to a teenager who is on the front end of creating a life, it is that can create a document that says, this is who I create myself to be. This is who I am. And to know that you have that power versus just having a default of this is the way I was raised, or this is what my environment is, or this is how I was shaped by these experiences. It is having ultimate power to create something and to step in something for the rest of your life. And that is what being is about.
Thank you for sharing that. I had a really neat experience in the last week. My daughter Sarah, who you had a chance to see her speak in Arizona there, and she asked me, she goes, "Dad, do you have a copy of the concentrated book?" And so I haven't given it to her. I have one right now, and so I wanted it for our interview. And when our interview is complete, then I'm gonna give it to her. But she's 19, and this book here, that's a big read for anybody, especially a 19-year-old. And so she's excited about the concentrated book, and for her to ask me for it, versus me saying, "Here, I want you to read this," was a really special moment. And I loved what you were just saying about, who do I want to create myself to be, and not this default of how I was raised, and it's just the way that it is. And one thing I think is really extraordinary is who you had to be to create the original book. And could you just speak to whether it was commitment, or whether, I mean, speak to it in your own words. Who did you have to be to have the book be birthed in the first place?
Um, There's a saying that I read the other day that sometimes some of the, the hard things in our life will take us to places we never wanted to go, but exactly where we need to be. And, that was kind of like who I had to be, is I had to let go of, well, I thought my life was going this direction. I mean, this was where my focus was. I was taking on this. And so I had to really be present in the moment of going, this feels like the right thing to do. This is the right thing to do at this time. I had some other projects I was working on for writing, and Steve's like, remember, we'll get back to those when we're done. And then we're finally finished. He's like, are you ready to get back to those? It's like, no, because they're kind of like the river. They have passed their time and their place, and that's okay. But so it was being willing to set aside what I thought I should be doing for what in the moment became crystal clear that I should do. And you're stepping into that with faith that um, it's the right thing. I mean, you're going on a gut level. It just feels the right thing. The biggest thing, and I know I've shared this at times, I really didn't know if I was capable of doing this, and especially capable of doing justice to as big of a project as it is to really make this live. And I say that because even though I have written other books, they're a different genre. They are nonfiction books. Well, I mean, and so is this partly. It's just, it was different than I had ever read, or I'm sorry, different than I had ever written. And I have shared, but it was very real for me that as we got to the end of it, we had a wonderful, wonderful woman who is an editor and a producer and just incredibly talented, read it, the manuscript. And she was telling us what she thought. And she was so sweet and so kind that it took me till the next morning to really understand what she was saying. And then I understood, oh, she's saying it's not quite good enough. And by the time I had sat with that all day, she kind of said it's close to be a nice book, but it needs work to be a marketable book, a really good book. And by the time we sat down at dinner, I just kind of buried my head in my arms and cried and said, I can't do anymore. I can't do it any better than what I've done. I've given it everything I could. And then I said, and that feels like my life. Everything in my life is just almost good enough, but not quite. And that was hard. That was a hard moment. That was probably shortly before I started getting some of these feedbacks from like Stephanie Wong. See, right? From Stephanie Wong and feel so bad when I just lost the name. Okay, and the author of How to Solve All Your Money Problems Forever. So, and so things changed. But so in that moment, I also had to stand, and not in the moment, in the writing of it, I had to stand in the uncertainty of taking on something that was bigger than who I was. Not sure if I had the tools, but being willing to risk. And I'm not saying, oh, just take a risk of experience or risk of failing, but a risk of investing a year of my life of intense labor for, like I said, 6 days a week for 10 hours a day. Am I willing to risk that much work for something that might not be good enough and might not make it? And so that's part of who I had to be.
And what do you think, what was it that called you to do the work? Because I think if I have it right, you were working on another book project at the time, or you had other things going on in your life. And what called you? I mean, that was a several thousand hour or however many hour project. And a lot of people, I'm a speaker, a trainer. I write books to grow my business, build my brand, etc. What was your calling to put this level of effort in to create something that we, of course, now people all over the world are benefiting from? But what created that for you?
I'm going to kind of butcher this quote because it's been years since I've read it, but you have the Shakespeare quote in Julius Caesar where he says, "There is a tide, we're taken at the fore." You know, in that moment, it makes all the difference. If you take it in the moment, and there was just that awareness of this is the time to do this. So all I can say, it was a gut level feeling of this is the right thing to do and the right time to do it. And you either step into it or you don't. And if you don't step into it, that time and place, maybe you can create it later, but maybe not. And so all I can say was a gut level feeling of this is what I need to do. And then just me, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do the best I can. Even if it's not good enough, I will give it the best I am as my shot. And so at that point, but I do have to also say that once you do get started, and I'll say once I finally got through reading all of Alan Thompson's um, computer generated transcripts, which made me want to cry almost every day I woke up because there's no punctuation. People don't talk in coherent sentences. They get interrupted by random thoughts. All of us do. I know how much I do that. And you're trying to read all these and make sense of them and go, okay, what am I going to glean from this to use for the book? And it was grueling. And it was like 6 weeks of grueling to do that. So once I got through that, it was also really exciting. And it's thrilling, and there's a creativity about it that is really fun. And there's moments you work and it doesn't come together, and you can spend all day on a page and then delete it because it doesn't work. And then out of the blue, you'll just have this burst of, oh, I know what to say there. I know what word to use there. And that's thrilling. And it's fun. I had computer or quotes on my computer all over by other writers. One of the famous ones is writing is easy. You just open a vein and bleed. And it's kind of how it feels. Um, so it's not like it was all hard, except I will say reading all those transcripts, that was hard. That one was just pure tedium, but valuable. And that's so much how life is. There are parts that are just tedious and not fun, but they're the incredible foundation without which you can't build upon. So there's life, it's a mix. You don't get pure joy in stuff that you do the work and you get the joy and you have the bursts of speed and, like I said, creativity. They're all awesome. But that's also what makes it so rewarding.
Fantastic. Well, I want to speak to all of our listeners all over the world for a couple of minutes here. And I'm very much an action person. So I want to talk to all of you watching and listening, and I want to talk to you about action. So the two books, The Ultimate Coach by Amy Hardison, and then The Ultimate Coach Concentrated, also by Amy Hardison. And I want you, if you don't have a copy of the book, get a copy. You can get it on Amazon in paperback, Kindle. This book is on Audible. This book is paperback and Kindle currently. If you don't have the book, get the book. And then more importantly, read the book. And the way that Amy and Steve instruct us to read the book is you go to the back cover and it gives you instructions. So you start off by reading this, and then you go, and this is true of both books, you go to the first 2 pages here that Steve gives instructions in both versions of the book before you begin. So you read this, and then you read the book about you. So you're not going to read the book about a story about Steve, although it's a story about Steve, but you look for yourself and how does that apply to your life, and what can you get from it that would be applicable to you? And there are people all over the world that have followed these instructions and miracles have occurred. And I wanted to share 3 very brief, without getting into the details of it. My father and I just celebrated Father's Day for the first time in 5 years because of a conflict that he and I had. And from what's talked about in this book and learning about being, and I learned how to shift my being, because I was being my dad's wrong and I'm right. And I shifted it to my dad has a perspective and I have a perspective. And that allowed us to come back together in a loving way. One other example in my own life is my relationship with my ex-wife, which prior to the book was essentially non-existent. And now we have a pretty good relationship. There's been a transformation. And if any of you have ever been divorced, you know how complicated that relationship can be. And there are real people getting real results. And it's you read the back cover, you read the first 2 pages, you read the book about you. And I want to encourage you to, if you don't have the book, to get the book today. If you have the book, read the book with those instructions. If you've already read the book, read it again. I've gone through it 4 times, and I'm going to continue to study the book because the more I study it, the more my life improves, and it's creating real results for people all over the world. So, Amy, any other thoughts you want to share about the creation of the book, the new book, the young people that will read the new book? Anything else that you want to share today?
Just a couple things. And the first is, sometimes when I was working with Chris on this, I tend to say, I think this is my favorite book. I like it better. And he said, Amy, you don't want to have favorites. He said they serve different purposes. They, one has a fullness because you have all these people adding their experience, their witness, basically, that creates this real depth of experience. It just kind of gives it heft because there's so many people who experiences these things. And on the other side, you have concentrated, where you have, I use the term loosely, but if you could just say, you cut the fat, you have added the most essential. To me, there's nothing extraneous in this book. Everything in it is needed, is there because it conveys the power and the impact of who Steve is and the work he does. And so there is something different when you read the book and you're just getting pure power with everything. Absolutely nothing except the essential. And we struggled and thought for 9, 10, 11 months what to call it, and nothing sounded right. And we called it abbreviated for a long time, and others. And then finally, I said the word concentrated, and Steve said, "Did you hear what you just said? That's it." And the reason I love that is my kids always tease about when they go to my mom's house, my parents' house, they're like, their orange juice was so potent, their orange juice and grape juice. They said they must have only reconstituted it with like 1 can of water. My dad had a sweet tooth, so maybe that's why they had super strong fruit juice. But that is what the concentrated feels like to me. It feels like it's just reconstituted with 1 cup instead of 3 cups or 1 can instead of the 3 cans of water. So I feel like it has the power, it has the principles that are needed. So even for those of you who have read the other one, I would say it's also worth reading concentrated to get a different feel. And I'd suggest that maybe different things will come forward for you.
Fantastic, Amy. It's been really wonderful to be with you today. How would you feel if we took some questions or allowed people to share for a few minutes before we wrap up?
That'd be wonderful.
Fantastic. Well, what we're going to do now, we do have a little bit of time left, and so we're going to open up the call. If you'd like to share, hit the virtual hand raise button. That lets me know that you'd like to share. If you want to express some gratitude, if you want to share how the book's impacted your life, just hit the virtual hand raise button, and we'll take shares for a little bit. We may not get to everybody because of just time constraints, but we will take some shares for a little bit. And we are going to start with Roseanne. If you want to hit the unmute button and come on out and share with Amy. And if you want to hit the unmute there, Roseanne, I can see you, but it's just still on mute. There you go.
All right, I'm here. Hi, Amy.
Hi,
Hi,
Roseanne.
Hi, everyone. I love you with all of my heart. If I could hug you right now, just for everything you just did, it would be so tight. I'm blown away by you 15 hours a day. I could imagine you doing that. And I read the book. I'm listening to it on Audible on repeat. There's like a chapter that I'll love and I'll like, I got to listen to that one again. I don't even wait to do the whole book and go back again. And I'm blown away by your storytelling. And the craft of telling a story of, I mean, I can even picture the front porch when she was standing there and the car was driving away, but the answer of when he left. How do you do that? How did you make that into this? And it could be a novel, every chapter.
Well, I think that just comes from being a lifelong reader, a reader and paying attention to and I love words, and as I read, I'll watch how authors create what they create. So, um, reading books about writing, it is almost ubiquitous for them to say, how do you be a great writer? You read, read. And so just as you read, you kind of start to get that sense. And that being said, it's not like it's seamless. It's like sometimes you spend hours, like the very first few paragraphs of the book, where it starts telling Steve's parents where they met in their life story at Hillfield. And I rewrote that like 20 times. And then I didn't feel like I got it right till I wrote ultimate or concentrated. So, it's both that craft, it's both that it is reading, being an avid reader, that gives you the intuitive sense of what works. And then it's the work of the creating the craft of it. But thank you. And I do feel that that's what's cranked up in the concentrated version is the storytelling element as a writer.
I got to give you credit though, honey, because I can read a million books. I've read a lot of books and I didn't get what you got. So you've got talent and I'm grateful. And I do have this book only because I was at Judy Thurston's event a couple weeks ago and she is so generous and had raffle drawings and everybody had to win a prize. And this was the best prize there. The concentrated.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Amy.
Thank
Okay.
you, Roseanne. Okay,
Okay,
Jay.
if I say something, can I say something?
Yes, Steve, go ahead.
Well, Amy was writing the book. She read 12 books on writing a book while she's writing the book.
And like I said, I was being pushed into a new genre. So I was not jumping in thinking, I got this. I'm thinking, I got to create the right tools. So, yes.
All right, Jay, it's your turn.
Hi, Amy, it's nice to meet you. And the question I have is, you've been around Steve so long, you've seen the influence he's had on people. And I'm sure in ways it's rubbed off on him just as it's rubbed off on you just as it's rubbed off on him. I'm curious, what did you learn new in this process about being or about yourself that you didn't know before when you really kind of dug deep into this?
Are you talking about the process of the books, like or just particularly this last book?
Well, I was talking just generally the process of the books itself, maybe even more the first one, because you had to kind of put it together in a way and really kind of think about what is this being from a brand new perspective and how do I tell that story? So I was curious about the new part that you learned about being, that you really had to kind of put the pieces together, and about yourself.
Well, when I was reading through all of Alan's transcripts of the computer generated transcripts from the interviews, there was one point he said, yeah, I don't think Amy really gets who Steve is. And I was highly offended when I read that because I'm thinking, I kind of think I get who he is. I think I live with him day in, day out, and I see all kinds of dimensions and aspects and greatness that people don't see, that he doesn't talk about. And I see some of the pain that he has that people don't talk about. But the more I sat with that, the more I thought, Steve is extremely confidential in his coaching. So I don't always get to see the Steve that shows up for his clients. And he can come in and talk to me a little bit about it, but it's limited because of confidentiality. And so I got to talk to people and listen to people and read people's words to see how they had changed his life. And that moved me. I loved to see that. And so then I had to go back and go, okay, so if I'm a little bit humbler, maybe Alan was right. In the way he's talking about, I didn't get to see Stephen. I got to see him through writing the book. So that was great. And then here's the ironic thing about the being. I wasn't writing the book from the place of being. I started to say this and I now realize I got sidetracked. That happens sometimes. I wasn't writing the book from a place of talking about being or creating being. I was creating Steve. But who Steve is all about is being. And so that actually came out in the book, not by my planning and intention, but by my writing Steve's story.
Mm.
So that's, I think, actually quite interesting. And when I've gone back and reread it, I'll go, oh, this is all about being. But it wasn't like my outline. It wasn't my plan. It came because that's who Steve is. And I was writing about Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Jenny, your turn.
Hello. I just wanted to share some super gratitude and lots of love to you for sharing these stories and being so vulnerable. That's so powerful. And this movement has really made a big difference for me. And thank you, Eric, for inviting me to be a part of this as I've been editing and posting, curating some of the footage from the past Ultimate Experience and the podcasts and things for the YouTube channel. So thanks, Eric, for introducing me to all of this, because I have been so moved, Amy, by what you have written and who you are being and the stories, and then getting to meet you in person in Arizona and Steve has just been life-changing. And so many of you that are on this call, the gift of the stories and the heart-centered emotions and how it has created so many ripples across the world. I'm appreciating you and sending you so much love today, and to all of you that are here.
Thank you. And you mentioned something that I feel bears a comment. And I shared this at our very, very, very first Arizona event, but an author that I liked reading talked about speaking at an event, and one of her friends was speaking, and her friend spoke about her daughter's eating disorder. And afterwards she says, I don't think I could share that openly about something that's so private. And this other woman said, Virginia, all we have are our stories. And if we can't share those, how can we hope to make a difference? And I think we need to be appropriate in what we share. But when my sister first read the book, she said, wow, you were really open. And I often get that. But we also often get people think, oh, you guys have the perfect marriage. You guys probably don't even have to work at it. And it's like, that doesn't do anyone any favor. What gives someone power is to see, no, they have challenges and struggles and they've worked through them. Being able to be open says, oh, you're another human being like me. You're not like someone that belongs in a totally different domain, and so I can't get there. It's like, no, we're in the same domain with the same struggles. So to me, that vulnerability really is access to power, and it's access to hope. And I have to acknowledge Steve for being willing to also be extremely vulnerable. There was almost nothing that when I brought to him that he said, I don't want that in there. And I thought he was very generous in doing that. So thank you for highlighting that.
Thank you, Jenny. And I just want to create for all of you who Jenny is. And when I was introduced to Steve back in 2010, as I indicated earlier, the only piece of content I could find on him was the TBO LA NFL video. And one of the things that's come out of what we now call the Being Movement is there's, I think, 91 podcasts that all of you have access to for free. And there's a YouTube channel with hundreds of videos with all kinds of different perspectives on being, including several hour-plus long videos of Steve himself. And Jenny has probably spent more time on that YouTube channel than anybody else. Eric Thurston runs the channel and Jenny does the majority of the work. So if you've ever enjoyed a video from that channel, Jenny likely has been involved in the editing and the publishing of that video. And I say that YouTube channel, it's $100,000 or more in real value that's available to anybody English speaking anywhere in the world at no cost to them. And it's one of the main ways that I share about being with people. is I'll share the YouTube shorts or share the longer clips. Just for example, Friday night, I was meeting with a gentleman named Ryan, and I shared with him a video that Alan Thompson did of Steve in Steve's office. And Ryan registered for today's Zoom. So Jenny's, you may not know her name, but she's doing so much. And ultimately, when it's all said and done, millions of people are going to be impacted from the video editing work that Jenny does. So she's a really, really special human being. So Jenny, thank you for that. Okay, and we got another special human being. Everybody's special on this call. Gabby Puma, your turn. Coming out and share.
Hi, blessed day for greatest you, everyone here. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Steve, Amy, for the greatest gift, the ultimate gift to each one of us. And listening deeply into you, into your sharing and your creation right here, right now, Amy. What for me has been, I am presently in my 38th reading of the book of being entitled Ultimate Coach Original. And the direction, the shift of my life, the direction that now is for the rest of my life, that I also did put on hold my life for 12 months to translate the book into Spanish and Quechua, and the Quechua language that is, fingers crossed, coming out this year, to serving our Quechua language speakers so they can access and experience the shift and shift from our default ways of being of life into our created way of life. And it's waking up constantly, embracing life. I've heard multiple times into this space in your creation, this moment, Amy, of this life. It is life. Those are the moments. It's like, oh crap, oh crap, my goodness, all every day, moment to moment is a combination. Oh crap, yeah, I am. This is my life. This is who I am. This is who I choose to be. And oh crap, I gotta go for it. And I choose to go for it. And it's moment to moment. I receive 3 days ago from Chris Nelson, our masterful creator, editor. And like, hey, Gabby, how, do you need help with our Quechua version? And I'm going, yes, I'm moving myself slowly through it. What's up? Share with me. What else do you need? And what you're bringing into, it is so much intuition. It is so much, if anything, that has got me closer to God in my own experience, intimate, to treat it with such an impeccability, what the book is and what it could be, to that one person, Quechua speaker, that will shift his life, his being. And I am sharing in my each breath the original for who they can be, the concentrated experiencing my experience. It expands me even deeper. There are some parts in the stories that it expands from the original one that gives me even fresher access to the depths of my human experience and links more my younger selves and gets this opportunity to integrate in who I am being in this moment. And well, here is our Spanish edition, our Spanish version. And I sat through this enough and asking God and inquiring into being. I said, I'm going to take it on the concentrated as well into Spanish. And then the deeper voice came, that intuition led that you were sharing with us here. Here I said, I want to be generous. This is who I choose to be. I want to challenge somebody else to have this greatest gift, to translate the concentrated, to serve, to have a rebirth as I did continually. The direction of my life in my each breath is ever expanding. And why wouldn't I want to challenge somebody else, invite somebody else to take up. It may take you 12 months. It is the PhD in being in your life, enrolled in your life. And to, like Amy is sharing with us, to live freely, openly, generously, the life that you have been given, and to share it that for who you can be, who your family can be, who humanity can be. So I'm inviting you and challenge you publicly right here. It is you. If this is you, if you speak Spanish and you understand, you have studied Spanish, take on this. This has sent me into this service-led, what speaks the book of being entirely through and through, service-led, purely giving, loving, serving. I invested 12 months of my life, $40,000. And I continue there still when I experience the Spanish book, I was like, ooh, I can change it to a different one, because there's a variety in the Spanish that could blend deeper, and still go 38 times reading through it. And I'm in that constant creation with, and then maybe giving Amy that, oh crap, what is what is up now? And the continual creation. Who would I need to be to continually expand, to embrace life? Who would I need to be to create and send this to Amy, to Chris Nelson, and to you, inviting you, hey, is your life, this is you, this is who you can be, to shift your life, and for all of us across the planet. So I want to acknowledge Stefano Di Martino, who, as far as I know, is committed to translating the book to Italian, the original one. You may shift your mind and you may translate into Italian, the concentrated one. I want to acknowledge Johannes Meltzer, who I received a few days back in a voice message that wants to commit to translate into German, the concentrated one. So, and I challenge, and there are incredible human beings right here, right now, who are translating to different languages. Probably you are going to start with the concentrated one, go for it. And as you are experiencing this moment live, it may not so much be like, oh, I'm going to do this, it's great, amazing, who would I need to be? It also is, oh crap, is this what is called from me right now? And believe me, there is more and more and more, as I now am having words to experience what this rebirth process has been for me for the last 3 years, is that, oh crap. And now that I, like, even the freedom to say, oh crap, I'm committed to being, I'm committed to you, I'm committed to our beautiful humanity, I'm committed to the transformation that we all can experience through the book of being. And I invite you to the Ultimate Experience Peru as well, that is happening in 2025, the first one in Spanish and English. So thank you for the life that you live, Amy, for the life that you live, Steve Hardison. Thank you for the life that now I get to live, free, open, in contribution to all of the planet and to all our beautiful humanity. Thank you, Eric, for who you are for me and for all of us, for the Being Movement. I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby.
Thank you, Gabby. Amy, do you have a few more minutes or do you need to go?
I'm good.
Okay, wonderful. I want to say a couple things. Gabby shared that she's read the book 38 times. She's also translated the book into Spanish. She leads the Ultimate Coach Facebook group in Spanish. She's leading the first English and Spanish version of the Ultimate Experience in Peru. So we can all agree that Gabby is commitment. So think about being committed to reading the book one time through or more, and following the instructions of the book, reading the back cover, reading the first 2 pages, and reading it from a place of commitment. Because if you have resentments in your life, if you have a broken relationship with a family member, if you want improved fitness, if you want improved finances, if you want to be kinder, if you want to let go of the past, this is a proven way to do it. And all you have to do is get a $20 book and follow the instructions. And maybe today, the reason that you're on this call is to raise your commitment level into following those simple instructions and really engaging, because we can dip our toe in the water and we can get dip our toe in the water results. Or you can be like Gabby and jump in and be committed, and you can have your entire life transform. So Gabby, thank you for sharing. Eleni Kotsis, I see you there. Would you like to unmute for a moment?
Hello.
So you are one of the reasons why we're here, because this book was created to impact the younger generation. Is there anything you'd like to share?
I thought this was really interesting about how Amy created this book. I didn't really know a lot of the backstory before. Thought that was really cool. And I also didn't know that Amy wrote other books. I had no idea.
Fantastic. Well, we are really excited that you are here and you represent our future. And I watched your video. That was you on the video in Birmingham, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And my 19-year-old daughter watched the video and she was so inspired by what you shared. And so you're having an impact on people that you haven't even met yet.
But will soon. In January, right?
Fantastic.
Amy, we started reading Concentrated when we were in England. We read it on our road trip, and we got about halfway through, which isn't too bad. It's nice that the shorter length was really great for that. We made a lot of progress and got to finish it over the summer. Thank you so much.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
you're welcome. And for all of you, we also have a Being for Kids Facebook group. And there's a whole movement happening within the movement about kids teaching kids about being. And this book is going to be the foundation of that. So thank you for sharing. And I'm gonna come back to Damien in just a moment. But Ranjan, I want to have you come on out and share, because you are a catalyst of this book being created. So Ranjan, if you want to unmute and come on out and share.
Hi, Eric. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and thank you, Amy. I just wanted to share that the wonderful news that I received this parcel of the books from Amy just 4 hours ago, and I've been waiting for these books. And you know, I've believed in miracles my whole life, and I just wrote up, I think 3 or 4 days ago, to Amy that I haven't received the books yet, and I'm still waiting for the books. And I read the email just yesterday that they're on the way, and what a miracle! I received these books today. But then when I received the books, you know, I shared this news. My dad doesn't understand all of these things, but I shared with him. But you can see the parcel is still not open. I haven't opened the parcel. And, you know, I realized that Sasi is the reason this book is here. And, you know, Sasi is an embodiment of being curious. And this boy asked a question, reached out to Steve, being curious, and this led to the creation and and the commitment from Amy Hardison to create this book, and that is what created this miracle for all of us that we are talking here. So I decided that I'll not open this parcel till, you know, and Sashi is in hostel, and he has been messaging for he messaged me about 10 days ago, Ranjan, I'm still waiting for the book, and you know, I have only one way of communicating with him, and he comes back whenever he comes back home, he messages me, and his dad got in touch with me, and they don't understand English, and you know, all these difficulties. Is in a very remote village of India, about a few hours of journey from me. And so I decided I'm not going to open this parcel till I reach him in person, and I want to open this parcel as a surprise to their whole family. And I just wanted to share this happy news with Amy Hardison. Thank you so much, Amy, for everything that you have done. And I'm very sure, Sashi is going to love this. His father is such an innocent person. He spoke with me for about more than 60 minutes, and he's very innocent like my father, and he was curious. He called me and he said, I don't know who you are, but I saw a few messages from you on WhatsApp, and what has my boy done? And I said, I said, he created a miracle. He created a miracle, and they don't understand. And I said, you will see soon the miracle he has, created in the world. And I wanted to share this with everybody in the group, that a boy who doesn't understand anything understands being curious. And thank you so much, Amy, for being commitment. Love you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Wow, that is incredible. Ranjan, thank you for sharing that story with us. The person who was the catalyst of the idea for the book, and you're going to be able to open that with him and his family. Thank you for sharing. Damien, your turn.
I heard my name, I was shocked. Some of the names in front of me and whatever. Uh, Amy, first of all, thank you very, very much for your work. And I was just listening, and like I've been here around December. I went to Phoenix, I went to Birmingham, and I read the book a couple of times. I listened to it a couple of times. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting it, but I'm not really getting it. So I had the experience, which you probably know, in the jacuzzi with Steve, Five Guys and Steve. That's the name of the title. And I got to see what I wanted to see, what I needed to see, somebody actually being present, being supportive. And the universe is like, it's going to give me what I need to hear. This is what was loud today for me. I heard what you said very loud. Writing is easy. Just cut open a vein and bleed. But this is what I heard. Steve's all about being. And Amy, what I hear from you is all about staying. You stayed. You stayed with Steve. You stayed with writing. You stayed with your questioning. Am I supposed to do this? And my biggest thing is resistance. So I wrote this down. It's about being and staying. And that's what you did. You stayed with Steve no matter what. You stayed with you no matter what. I look for the next book about your story, about being and staying in the foundation of who do I need to be and stay there. That's what was real loud to me today. So, and I get along kids better than adults, and I'm 66. So I want to say thank you, and thank you for your staying and not leaving. That's it out of me. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. It's beautiful.
Wolfgang, your turn.
Wow, thank you so much. I had an incredible experience just before. I was walking with Elijah. I'm still in Zambia. We are at the Victoria Falls here in Livingston, and I walked with Elijah, and he said, he never saw you, he never met you. So I want to introduce you to Elijah. It's my friend here in Zambia who actually created the room 509 here, why I came and brought the books. And what I want to say about the books is really connecting me to the concentrated. Being here in Africa is an amazing experience. People are so excited about a book. It is something which goes in the direction not having too many material possessions. A book becomes a miracle just because it is a book. Mm-hmm. And what I wanted to share with you, Amy, is this book is like a baby. You go somewhere, you show the book. Of course, the people see us. I mean, he is with me and I'm with him, and how we are together and what we talk about. I mean, it's all a bit different. So people are interested, and then we have a book, and people come and they say they want to have a book. And we are here in a little resort, and it's beautiful. I walk in the morning from our room to the breakfast, and there is people sitting in the corners reading the book.
Wow.
So everywhere where we walk, there is people with the book, and they literally read it every moment when they have a moment to sit down. And this I wanted to share with you. This is my experience since I came to Africa. People are grateful for the little things. What connects me to children? They're curious. And I look forward to have this concentrated and to have the children reading it, because they just do it. They are just naturally curious, and that really connects me to Africa. And I'm grateful for the journey, and Elijah, for you for creating that and inviting me and being here. And thank you. I mean, there is so much more to say, but
Yeah, I would love to say something. First and foremost, I'm just going to say that I'm excited for meeting you, Amy Hardison, for the first time. And I'm also grateful to Wolfgang for his commitment and all the people that saved his commitment to donate the books so that they can come and be with us in Africa. The books have really made a huge impact on a lot of people that have given me the feedback to the people that I really gifted the book to. And it has also created the awareness for myself. You know, each time I read the book and I try to apply what I read in the book, I always think about one thing that is very important in my life, to realize that I existed before there could be any chores in my life. I existed before there could be any challenge in my life. That's who I am being. That's being. I came in existence before there could be anything that has to do with a challenge, with a problem. So who you are being is everything, and the testimonies, they are just coming. And I love one testimony that that another gentleman shared, that after reading the book, and I don't know how he gifted the book to the wife whom he was separating with, but the wife read the book and he read the book, and they decided now to just come back together and live as one, and one happy family. So there are so many testimonies. Thank you very much for sending this book to us and for writing the book. I'm truly grateful.
Thank you so much. Very touched my heart deeply.
Thank you, Wolfgang, and thank you for your
greetings from
commitment.
Africa, and soon being back in Europe, and the connection here changed massively in the last week.
Thank you, Wolfgang. All right, we're down to our final 3 shares of today. Rebecca, come on out and share.
Thank you, Eric, and hi, Amy. I really just wanted to come in and share, because having time with you is such a blessing. And so I really wanted to express my love and gratitude to being with you today, and for the book and the new book as well. But I wanted to share something. I was lucky to go over and meet Steve in last year, and the bonus was getting to meet Amy again and spending some time with Amy. Which was a beautiful moment after I'd had such an amazing experience with Steve. But one thing that Steve said when I was with him, which really stuck with me about Amy, was that Steve said to me, I don't know whether and he may have said this to other people, I don't know, but he said to me, I don't know whether God is a man or a woman, but whoever they are, they have an Amy. And that has always stayed with me, and was definitely my experience of being with Amy. Such a blessing. So thank you, Amy, for everything that you are.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. Jen, your turn.
Hey there. I am new to all this. I have read The Ultimate Coach once, and I'm now doing the condensed version. And I just thought if I could be in the presence of you two and all of those who appreciate you, it would raise the level of my being. A question I had from the beginning of reading The Ultimate Coach, knowing you wrote it, I was curious from the first moment. Okay, this is his wife. She hears him fart, you know, like, like she's, and it was fascinating to watch him and hear about him from others. Like that was what was playing in my mind, besides all that I was learning. And so the question I have is, you know, Steve seems like such a powerhouse, and I'm changing my thinking on this, but I'm like, well, of course that happened for Steve. He's like, I don't know, he's on fire, like he's walking fire. So okay, you know, and then I've seen God use me in these moments that are just crazy, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I kind of get it. But you have such different personalities and such different temperaments. And so neither one of you, I think, from what I understand, didn't get married saying we're going to be the being couple, right? You were just like knocking it out, like trying to like be alive and not, you know, all of it, the whole life thing. And what was your experience in the being process? And maybe this has been asked in other forums, but what was your experience in creating your being around his being as you're learning about being? Tell me more about that, if you don't mind.
I have said, Steve has said many times, we are so different. We are so polar opposite. But that being said, our experiences isn't really different than any couple trying to combine a life when you come from two different backgrounds, two different value structures, two different ways of being. Then you just throw in a man and woman if you're a heterosexual couple. It's like there's just so many differences that are built in. So you walk in love and you just figure you're going to figure everything out. And along the way, you stub your toe, and along the way, you go, this is harder than I thought. But it's your path. It's not only a path, it's a path of personal development. It's a path of couple development, of figuring out not just who you are, but who you are together. And because we got married so young, I was barely 18. I'd only been 18 for 2 weeks when we got married. We had a lot of growth ahead of us. And that actually, in the original book, we talk about Werner Erhard and Byron Katie and, you know, things like that. But they're not just like, here's a nice chapter. They were fundamental at helping us understand life and people and ourselves and how we became who we are, which ultimately is the foundation of who we are together and relate with each other. So this idea of being and, you know, of Katie's, of loving what is, and of the form of being your word, and really the you know, I love in the form of talking about where people are like they're defending or justifying or you're blaming, and you know, you look at all those things of human behavior that you learn as you go through life, and other people are going to learn them through different ways. And what is actually really thrilling is I look back and say, this person or this concept helped us create who we are and to understand each other better and understand ourselves better. And what I hear as I listen to the book or listen to this call is that our book gets to be one of those stepping stones for a lot of people. And, you know, we live life and we learn and we struggle and we grow. And I think the other part of it is we make a contribution. We make a contribution by how we live, by who we are, by reaching out and sharing our vulnerabilities, by sharing our joys and our hard things and our successes, and saying, here's what worked for us and here's what's successful. And it's just been an incredible privilege and a total shock for me to realize that our personal experience has been elevated to some degree to benefit people all over the world. And it's very humbling and thrilling at the same time. And it's just a pure privilege.
Did you find yourself creating like doing the being process like formally, or did it kind of evolve because you were in the middle of
I'd say
doing life with him?
It's more of an evolution over life of going, oh, this is who I stand for being. This is an important part. I think we all kind of get our own personal a personal theology. And when I say that, I'm not speaking about a religious theology, but like a personal set of beings. And this is how life works. This is what works with human beings. This is how relationships flourish. This is how a person expresses their creativity. And this is how a person contributes to humanity by their life. And so you figure out your own personal path, your own personal values of what that is. And so the being movement really, at least in my point of view, is a culmination of 30 years, 40 years of living that together. So it was far more in place before it ever became known as a being movement, but it was just coming together piece by piece as you figure out life.
Thank you. And I appreciate you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, Tanya, you'll be our final share of today. Come on out and share.
Thank you, Eric Laughlin, and thank you, Amy Hardison. I'm so entirely grateful for your creation and the gift that you have created for all of us to read the book of Being, The Ultimate Coach. I've had the greatest opportunity to be part of the team for the book readings now for 2 years, and it's the greatest gift to watch people experience transformation in their life. To be able to create a space for them to do that and to feel held in community has really been a gift and such a unified effort. And I believe that is what has created the beautiful experiences in Birmingham, in London, in Arizona, like the unity of people that want to share the gift because they are experiencing it in their own life. And so through their commitment in service, I really want to acknowledge Gabby for all of the time and energy that she put into translating it, and her invitation for somebody to also do it and do the concentrated version. I had a gift about a week ago, and it was through a commitment for one of the book readings. And it's somebody that was going to be our guest reader had moved to another country. So they didn't have a book with them. So somebody on the team said, oh, I'll translate it for them. And I thought, oh, I can do it quickly. I thought I could do it quickly in a certain way. And both two quickly ways weren't working at all. And so I had to go through, and it was a long chapter. It was 19 pages. So I went through the entire chapter. And like you said, where you got that transcript, where then you had to go in and you had to like punctuate and you had to like find the end and the beginning and all that. And I only did that for one chapter. And I felt so transformed. So I just can't even imagine what Gabby went through in doing it in both the 2 different languages for all the chapters, and what you went through, and just for both books. It really is a gift that if we're willing to read the book about ourselves, the unlayering of stories and the unlayering of things that we hold on to that really steal our now, the gift of now, and the creation and possibility of now and future forward. And so I really just want to thank you so much for the gift, and especially thank you because I just got a shipment in of 23 books. So I'm super excited to share, and I will continue to share it with everyone that I come into contact with, because it's been a gift in my life, and it continues to transform my relationships with my children, with people with my family, with my husband, my spouse. And what I really love is your vulnerability through the chapters, and what I'm experiencing through you, because for me, both of you are like an ultimate coach for me, is how you continue to create each other, and how you continue just to create every moment. So thank you. Thank you.
Tanya.
Thank you, Tanya. Gabby, did you have something real quick?
Thank you, Eric. Yes, inspired what I just last heard from Amy, being a total shock of who you are, Amy, and who you are, Steve, impacting the planet quite literally by the day, by the hour, by the minute, by the breath. And I want everyone to know I saw about 110 of us at one point, and here we are, 57 of us presently. I want you to help me share the Ultimate Experience Peru is the first launch in Spanish and English. And if Amy and Steve has impacted your life in any way, which I feel it has, it is, you are here. And every Ultimate Experience Spanish, it's in 20th of April every year, yearly. It's a yearly commitment. I have no clue how that is going to happen. All I know is that I'm committed into that, celebrating for the rest of my life these two human beings that have shifted my life. 20th of April of every year is their engagement date that they have said to each other yes into being. And I've listened deeply to everybody inquiring, what was your journey with being? How did you come about being? Were you writing about being? Or what is this whole thing about being? And I say to you, the answers are going to come. More importantly, you're going to live it. Keep inquiring, keep leaning into it, keep reading the book about you, keep following it strictly, obedience, surrender into honoring by reading first the back cover of the book, the two front pages of the book where it says before you begin, and read the book about yourself, and help me please to share about Ultimate Experience with your commitment to getting the ticket. And as you know, is exemplary lift, not theory, not ideas, not concepts, but it's lived by Amy and Steve daily in every breath to serve. This event, every penny goes to serving extraordinary causes. Nobody's making a profit of it. I'm not making a profit of it. Pure service, pure giving, celebrating these two extraordinary human beings whose life has us here, right now, whose life is impacting by the minute everywhere across the planet. And thank you, Steve and Amy. I love you with everything that I am, into who we can be, all languages, as my coach Steve Hardison tells me, being has no language. Being is not reduced to language. Being is being. Being is everything. And I say, if you do not have answers just yet, right now, I say keep experiencing the book about yourself. Keep leaning into it. Keep sharing about it. I heard somebody also the other day tell me, like, well, it's too much. I don't know how to exactly say it. People tell me like I'm crazy, or what is that exactly? I say, exactly, keep leaning into it. It will appear, it will be revealed for you. Keep being you. Share. It's gonna appear, I promise you. I'm 3 years in, and Amy generously sharing with us 30 years, 40 years of committed to being oneself fully, thoroughly here and now. So please help me. Please commit into your life, into being yourself. It's translated the book, concentrated in the Spanish and any other languages. Commit to being the Ultimate Experience Peru and all the Ultimate Experience events all across the planet, which is you only are going to grow in your being, period. You're only going to live the greatest extraordinary life, and everything shifts, including the planet. Your family, as Eric, our leader, is sharing with us, the extraordinary relationship with his dad, with his ex-wife. My goodness, I have a completely new family by the day. Every challenge that comes, like, whoa, I gotta create. Oh crap, I gotta create. So please help me commit. I love you. Help me celebrate yearly these two extraordinary events, 20th of April of every year. It's next year. It's their 48th anniversary of engagement. So thank you. You may think that's a crazy idea. Why would I want to be celebrating this engagement party of these two, whatever people, whatever it is you're choosing to create in your head right this moment in yourself? I say it is not even about Amy or Steve. It is about being. It is the being that lives in you. It is a being that lives in me. It is the being that lives in every single human being. And they happen to be committed to being. I love you. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Eric, for allowing me to share this. I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. Wow. Amy, thank you for being with us for 90 minutes and for sharing your heart and your commitment and creating these books and inspiring all these people all over the world. And thank you for saying yes and for being with us today.
Thank you, Eric, for all you do on a daily basis for your vision and leadership.
You're welcome. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up our session today. Thanks all for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll look forward next time we gather as a community. We'll talk to you later.
Thank
Bye.
you, everybody. Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Amy.